and we'll begin tonight's meeting. And welcome, everyone. We'll try to go as quickly as we can. And I realize it's short notice, but has anyone looked over or any thoughts on the agenda from the March 12th, or do you want to wait till our next meeting to approve it?
The minutes.
The minutes, I'm sorry, the minutes.
I have reviewed them.
Yeah, I would rather wait for the next meeting.
Okay.
After we read them,
Motion table?
go to the table.
Motion tabled, second? Okay. We'll table the reading of the minutes of March 12th, Tuesday, to our next meeting. By way of, well, I think we're going to hold up, well, the other remaining projects we have. Amy, do you have a list? Or do you have
Well, I just have
Go
some
ahead.
feedback from the city solicitor about some stuff that came up last time and other information. Remember how we talked about the anti-aid amendment and how that's could get in the way of funding private projects. So she hasn't had that much time, to review, and we've been advised that she should put a legal opinion into writing. So she needs time to do that, but she did get back to me and said, my unofficial, as in not in writing at this time, opinion is that we subject ourselves to liability by providing CPA funds to any of the religious institutions. So remember the church representative that came. There have been suits filed, and while there could be an argument for the quote public good, it may not be one that we want to have, considering the numerous other battles the city is already fighting at this time. Furthermore, I think we have plenty of other options for the funding at this time. Once you allow funding for one religious institution, it will have to be equal for all other religious organizations and comparable, and it will lead us down a very slippery road. As to public funds being spent on private properties, I think we should look to make the argument that there is a public good being served by expending the funds toward these projects, and be prepared to defend any decision the committee makes with the city council. If it was a question elsewhere, it will certainly come up in our discussions. She says, that's my quick answer, and I'll put something more formal together for when these projects actually get to city council. And she said, let me know how the meeting goes tonight. It may be a moot point at the end of the day, depending which projects they want to pursue. Because I was saying to her that rather than asking her to write an opinion for every single project, it might be better once the committee narrows down the projects they really want to fund, and then she could write her opinion, So what I was going to suggest, and I did suggest to Elaine, was that maybe today the committee could take an unofficial preliminary vote on the remaining projects, just like you did for the first bunch of projects. And that way there'd be a little bit more time for the legal opinion. And if we met again on March 20th and maybe the 27th, the city solicitor would have time to write a legal opinion on the projects that the committee seems interested in funding, and not waste your time on others. And that can happen prior to that first city council meeting at the beginning of April. So that's what I was thinking, rather than rush right to voting, that would also give the city solicitor more time, but that's just a thought that you could think about.
Do you have a list? I should have brought mine, I didn't.
Yeah, I have a list.
Of the remaining projects that we discussed?
I do. Yeah, but I also want to tell you that I looked into the other question about who can do the oversight of the Secretary of Interior Standards for historic rehabilitation, and I did hear back from the Somerville staff person, Somerville CPA person, and they have a much bigger budget, so they have their preservation planners who are city employees who work closely with their staff and their committee. We don't seem to have that here. They also pay a historic preservation planner about $90 an hour to give advice to ensure compliance with the standards. And they found their consultant through the Mass Historic Preservation listserv. So as we all know, we're running low on admin budget. So what I've done is I contacted Stacia Kaplanson. She is the Preservation Massachusetts Circuit Rider for Western Massachusetts, and I was given her name before. And I'll probably speak to her tomorrow to see if she might be able to put, just get us on the right track with this, but it is a difficult situation without enough funds. I think most of these other communities somehow work with their employees, their city employees, on this, or they can also hire a consultant with their admin money. So that's the answer to that question from this community anyway. But yeah, I can give you a list of the, remind you of the other projects.
Amy, do you have, just for my own information, what is the balance, how much is left from last night still in the kitty that we haven't spent?
Well,
so to
I
speak?
didn't do that because I have limited hours and
Okay.
I would have to know beforehand, but I did give everybody a sheet
Said it aloud.
Yeah, we did it last.
where here's the sheet, so if you just subtract,
So
Um,
it's 618.
look at this section.
389.
618 left, or that's what we allocated.
So for
I don't
2000,
remember whether it's what's left or what we allocated, but
It's gotta be
Let me
what
pull
we
up,
allocated.
let me pull up the.
but there's, of course, would be less in the historic category because we're drawing from.
That's what
that.
we need to do, we need to look at
Mhm, right.
each
Well,
by
that's what this-
category and
We did this,
deduct which ones we have appropriated or
Yeah,
or
so too.
recommended so far and what the net is in each of the
okay, but the
categories.
problem is my hours are limited, so like.
No, we can do it right now.
Yeah,
I'm
we
not,
do it right
I'm not
Okay.
saying,
just
Yeah.
ballpark, doesn't have to be.
yeah,
yeah, Megan did the rough numbers last time we went over this, so.
And if you give me a few minutes, I can do it.
What?
If you give me a few minutes, I can do it if you want.
Sure, I mean, because like right now, I'm really trying to work on the recommendation for the stained glass windows, which, does take some precise language to be put in there in a very short time. And then, of course, I'm gonna have to do the 4 other ones in time for Friday to send to Mike, so. But anyway, the
If I could
remaining,
just jump in for the sake of your time and management, but do you need the full detailed recommendation for Friday to file that order, or can we give we recommend these in this amounts with all the recommendations to come?
I think that I can just enter an order. And it's very vague. It just says that the city council approve or consider the first request for use of CPA funds for stained glass windows.
well,
Plan. And that'll give us till Tuesday for me to have the entire package. As long as I got something to put on the agenda.
oh, so you mean on Tuesday, I could have more of the details about the project? And you wouldn't need about the stained glass project?
Right.
Oh, okay, that
Right.
makes it a little bit easier. Because one thing I've learned from, studying the CPA Coalition website is that it's important to put a lot of the details about exactly which fund things will come out of and, how this was determined and put it in writing for the city council.
Well, yeah.
So-
I'll need that,
Yes.
I'll definitely need all of that for Tuesday night.
Okay, so all you really need is the very basics for the stained glass.
I think I can,
well, this type of letter here,
Well, I have more than that at this point, so I'll probably be able to send you.
like right now, I just say, that the, well, the whole thing's coming out of the historic resource fund.
Yeah.
I know it's coming out of the unrestricted fund.
Right.
Right? Then it would be that the city council approve $75,000 from CPA funds for stained glass window restoration.
Yeah, it won't take
Plan,
me
that's
too
it.
long, I was just gonna put in a few little more details about
And
the
then-
project.
Yeah,
and then what about the other round that, these other ones that we went, when do you
Well,
get that?
those will
Have to
just,
have the rest of
those will
the
just get sent to finance, so I could do
Yeah,
the same thing with the others. And
Yeah.
that'll cut out all the work for you. I can get the boys club one going, that's gonna go to finance. So it's just, I'll put them in each as individual orders, okay? Because they're gonna be voting on each individual one. But then on Tuesday night, I'll pull this one out. I won't allow it to be sent to committee. I'll ask to debate it right there on the floor, have all the facts ready. I don't think there's a single person on the
Okay, but my
Council.
understanding was we were gonna do it in 3 phases, so, I was
Right.
gonna try to get the stained glass one to you as a separate memo or whatever from the other ones.
I'll need that one for Tuesday. I won't need any of the other ones for Tuesday. I can send it just like this. I'll need it for the finance meeting.
Okay, so you only need the stained glass one before Friday?
No.
Or by two? I'm kind of confused, sorry.
I can take this right here, what we've got from last night, make up a general order, and file it tomorrow.
Okay, so you don't need me to send you anything
No,
right now?
no,
Okay,
all right? And that'll get them on the agenda and sent off to the right place. What we do have to have is all of that stuff for the committee.
Yes, yes.
Right.
And the detail for Tuesday's city council meeting for the stained glass.
Stained glass windows.
because
I don't need
you're not-
any
you don't
detail. Right.
Want that to go to the subcommittee, you want to be able to have enough information for the councilors to be able to make a decision on stained glass on Tuesday night, hopefully.
Right.
Okay, so you need the details, I don't need to send you anything until Tuesday. The details on the stained glass window, I'll send you on Tuesday.
Right.
And then what about the others that have already been voted in? When do those need, do you need those?
By the time they get taken up in committee.
Okay, so.
I can't tell you. Joe McGivern's gonna schedule that.
So the
Um,
finance subcommittee meets on
Because
April
in a
16th.
way, if I'm gonna do more detail, well, okay, I guess it's, I was gonna say it almost might be easier to do it all at once, because it's sort of like I have to read it, but I can kind of.
That
cut
won't
and
hurt,
paste.
that won't harm anything if it's all done at once.
Yeah, but I mean, it actually, it will take a lot of time to put all those details for each project, so it's really good if I only have to do the stained glass by Tuesday. That will make it easier.
Yes.
Yes,
okay.
yes. We do not need the full recommendation to get these orders filed.
Right.
But we will need them for committee meetings and for the city council takes up the stained glass on Tuesday.
Yep.
And that seems very doable.
So, just so that I understand, you're going to put in the stained glass plus the other ones. That's just generally worded orders that council approve the funding of this out of CPA, out of these 4 of the ones
Yeah,
that,
I'm gonna enter 5 orders. I'll do it tomorrow, so there's no.
Oh, okay, so you enter that, but then you.
but the detail for the stained glass by next Tuesday so that the council can,
Okay.
Been
And
voted
just
in
as
for-
soon
fully
as you
informed.
find out, Mike, about how soon you need the others, just let me know.
You don't see it.
Yeah, once again,
Yeah.
because that, on Tuesday is when it'll get referred to the subcommittee.
right.
And then Joe will schedule prior to the next subcommittee meeting when he will do it, or maybe at the next subcommittee meeting.
Joel's schedule, when Joe's schedule.
Okay, but he doesn't have to do it at a meeting.
He
can.
He's not gonna do
Doesn't
it. Oh, he's not gonna do it that night.
No, I understand that,
Yeah.
It's actually not here.
Okay, but he doesn't do the scheduling at a formal subcommittee meeting. He might, but he's not required to do that.
He never, none of them ever did.
Okay.
The one I'm supposed to get to tonight,
So it's probably
the order I've got in,
these numbers.
that's on there tonight, was filed in April of last year.
This is how much is.
So, good luck.
Amy, any other thing?
All right, well, do you want me to just mention the other projects?
Yeah, why don't
Okay.
we do that?
So the Maple Street project
Well,
is.
could you do me one favor? Could we do the Boys Club Phase 2 first? Because I really have to get,
Oh,
Sure.
and
Okay.
we have somebody.
I'm somebody,
Okay.
well, not just good.
Okay, I wasn't even thinking about that, because I guess I was confused. I didn't know that that was what I wanted to do, but
Well,
okay.
that's,
Well, I didn't mention it till just now. It's just
Yeah.
I've got this charter of rules. so I can get
Yeah, so
it
the
myself.
Holyoke Boys and Girls Club, the second phase is for $188,600. But I think, that would be a later timeline, of course, for the first phase. And I'm trying to remember, I think that's for the basketball courts.
No, it's the other way.
No, it's the other way around.
What?
It's the park.
It's for the
Inside of it.
green space and the playscape and the basketball
Oh,
court
okay.
phase 1.
Oh, I thought that, sorry, I'm mixed up. I thought it was okay, I thought the green space was in the first phase, adding infrastructure.
Basketball
Let me look
courts,
back.
phase one.
Can
So,
I give
just-
us yours? Can we ask him to give us
Can we,
his name and
yeah,
address?
can we suspend our rules to allow the public to?
sure, go ahead.
All in favor? We can get it.
All in favor?
Absolutely.
Aye.
Your name?
Ephraim Suarez.
You want to come join us?
Yeah, sure. Ephraim Suarez. I'm here to, see what's going on with Boys Club. You grew up in Holyoke.
What's your address? So I can put it in.
My address is 22 Tenny Street, Chicopee, Mass. You want to spell my name? EFRAIM Suarez. Just here to, I've been working with the Boys Club to see what we can do to get the project going for the kids. Of course, last update was, I was probably with Mr. Fox's son here, one of the first players to play in that court 25 years ago. And, it's, you look at the area, it's deteriorating. My daughter goes there, and I see these, kindergarten playing out there, busting their ankles because the concrete is just, the
So-
asphalt is coming up.
Not to interrupt you, but just so you're aware, we voted last night to recommend funding of phase one
Yeah,
of the
totally.
Boys Club to the city council. Now it goes to city council and it will, but, so we're over the hump of the basketball court getting funded. Now what we're looking at, we have limited money, is phase two, which is the green space. And do we fund phase two now, or do we hold on phase two for another round of funding and allocate those monies to other things? So that's
And
where the
I
committee.
appreciate for, phase one. I think the project as a whole should be completed, sooner than later. You look at New Street, you look at Exit Street, you look at the side of the park. Basketball court is good for somebody who's playing basketball. Summer camp is starting in a couple months, the school's over. These kids, 90% of them are fifth graders till kindergarten. Kindergarten's not gonna play basketball there. They're gonna use the park. So in order to do so, we need to figure out how we're gonna get the park ready for summer camp, and that's in 3 months. And I think the funding will be beneficial to get that project started. I know that, phase one is a basketball court, but for a kindergarten, they're not gonna go play basketball. That's for the older kids. We need to figure something out. It's very hot out there. My daughter comes home sometimes exhausted because there's no shade or anything, and, all they can do is give them water and go inside. But, when you have a park there that all they have is that section of the area where you play inside. Kids don't want to be inside. They want to go play outside and run around. And, you look at the park there, it's really, there's not much for them to do. It's falling apart, the green area, the fences are falling apart. Kids are getting hurt all the time because the asphalt's coming apart. And, plus it's not fun walking on asphalt with cracks and everything. So I think, funding everything at the same time that they get the project started, I think, it was beneficial for the club and for the kids in the city.
I'm not sure they'd be able to do it all at once though, because the way, it seems like they had laid it out, the timeframes.
Well, the timeframes were laid out because they were thinking of the summer program, they wanted to go after the summer program. They talked to a couple contractors and they could shorten the time frame to get the project done. And
And having the funds would make life a lot
having the
easier.
funds make it a lot easier because once you have the funds available, they could get started with the project. So having the funds would make it a lot easier to talk to the contractor and, knowing that the funds are coming from the CPA, the contractor might get the project started in the beginning and then be funded after.
I feel like we should warn you at this point that we can make the recommendation, but we cannot guarantee that the city council will approve our recommendation, and that it's going to be, 3 months easily before any checks are actually cut.
And that's understandable. I think at this point, once the recommendation goes to city council from the CPA approval, I think talking to contractors, a lot of them, a couple of them are gonna be from the area. I think to help out the club and get the project started, I think a few of them will get the program going first. And then, once the funds come available, I think they'll be able to do something.
In other words, they'll carry the.
They'll carry the bill till the funds are
Well, as
available
long
and
as they-
it's a quick
yeah.
transfer.
Yeah, no, as long as you appreciate that we can't guarantee
I
that the funds are coming because we vote to approve it.
So does anybody here have any objection to not giving them the money, or say, no, I want to wait? Or is there an agreement this evening that we should fund the second phase this evening and just put the baby to bed?
Okay, my only concern about that, and it has nothing to do with the Boys and Girls Club, is whether if we do that, we are going to wind up without the budget to fund something else we want to fund. Speaking for myself, I don't see a problem. I think this one is an easy one. We know the need. We know that you guys can manage it. Everything else on our list has various issues attached to it. So, I would be perfectly willing to put off funding for any of the others to do this. But I don't know how you guys feel about
I
that.
feel the same way, the common good. This is the city, it's the Community Preservation Committee, it's for the common good. What supports more the common good than the Hoyok Boys Club? Clearly, anybody from the city at a certain age can partake of it. It's not a particular strata of the of Hoyok society or a particular group, it's everybody. This is as public spirited a undertaking as there is. So I have no problem in funding last night, phase one, and voting this evening, funding for phase two. If we have to delay another fellow's recommendation till the next year, fine, but this is such an ideal situation, an ideal time to give them the certainty of having funding of phase one and phase two in their back pocket. It makes life a lot easier for the board, for the board of the Hoyok Boys Club, to go forth with this project with that understanding. Mike?
And I would just add to that, we've been listening to, and I'll use the Victory Theater as an example, we have been listening to this for 20 years, all right? I don't think us giving them a little bit of money is gonna make it happen this year. This is, and we talked about a roof for the train, something we can lay our hands on. This is something that could be done, visible, and open to the public, especially that section of the public that was very much against the CPA, to see in 90 days. So that, I'm all for that.
And if I can jump here, it's also, like I said, summer camp is coming soon. And to have these kids with a new facility out there, to have their joy out there in a new facility. And it's also gonna attract more kids to do so out there. The basketball court, I grew up there, to play at night with the lights. Right now the lights don't even work. So to play at night with lights and having summer tournaments there is beneficial for the city.
Absolutely.
I'll take it actually one step further and really throw the gauntlet down. In November, where the kids play, across the street, under the billboard, a dead guy froze to death. That's what they're playing around, instead of having a gym or a nice place, all right? So,
I don't know if we're gonna be able to
So,
stop.
wait, that whole.
I'm just throwing that out on the table, now
Okay,
we're gonna
guys,
vote on this thing.
Yeah, Jim, go ahead.
I fully support the boys club, Boys and Girls Club. I want to make sure we have a pie, right? We're cutting up the pie. I just want to make sure we're not getting a piece that's too big outside of what we have available for funding in this category of open space. And that's the math that we've been trying to do. And just because Gloutak and the Boys Club, those two both go in open space. That combined, those are $537,000. I just want to make sure
Yeah.
we have enough money in that category to cover those.
Well, then we would
do
have
it
to take
because-
over 434,000 out of the unrestricted
Yeah.
budget.
Right.
I don't have a problem with that, but if there's that much in the unrestricted budget that's
There
available,
is.
and if there
I just
is,
wanted to run the numbers.
and there aren't other things that are competing for that, other projects, I will make a motion to approve phase two.
Well, it's a question of need and timing, and yeah, they're all very worthy projects. This one is most worthy of all of them. So it deserves special consideration
No doubt.
by the nature of the club.
Right, just like I said, my only reluctance was to make sure we had a big enough pie.
They didn't
To
post
give
the
it-
numbers, I believe.
Okay.
That's this is what,
So, yeah, there's enough in the unrestricted budget to pull it over. It's just, if we include phase two, that means that in total, that was that number, we would have allocated $618,000, 389. So it
And
means,
that includes things beyond the open space stuff. That's all of the stuff that we voted on last year.
oh, I see, sorry,
in total,
sorry.
that's what it
Sorry,
would
sorry,
mean
sorry,
we had
right.
already allocated.
Could you
Right.
repeat that, please?
$618,389.
Oh, and 618,000 was for what?
That would be for everything that so far we've agreed to,
Last night.
including, yes,
And-
including phase two
and
of
phase
the
two.
Boys and Girls.
Okay.
Oh, including phase two,
um,
we're only up to 600, we got like 900 more to spend?
No, so we only have roughly, so that's the number that I was hoping was on the budget from last time, it is not. We have roughly $1 million this cycle to spend.
So we got 400 large. Go ahead.
So we roughly have $320,000 left to spend afterwards. If, a little bit less, because of course 5% of the budget goes to admin each year.
Yep.
So what's the 1.54
That's what's been requested. So if we fully funded every single project that came to
Oh, I
us, it would
see,
be
okay.
Yeah.
roughly
Oh,
$1.5 million.
Yeah, this
Okay,
first
so that's
chart
total
here-
requested.
Yeah,
What we
This-
don't have is total available.
yes, which is what I'm gonna, next time we can ask Andrew to
I
make sure
thought
that's on there.
This first chart is if everything was funded, and including all phases, and this is if only the first phase
Yeah,
of Holyoke
but what
was.
we don't have is what we have total available, so we can't do that.
And
10, 10,
That's what I
10,
wanted to do, but-
And
10,
the
and
second
then the
one
rest to be.
also is if, only, well, I mean, this second chart shows just 100,000 to the, I say just 100,000 to the Victory Theater, rather than their full 300,000 over 3 years. So the second one is a little more, I don't know.
But guys, what is your thinking? Is everyone comfortable committing this evening for just the second phase of the Holyoke Boys Club? Is everybody comfortable, given what we have as a balance, what our needs are? And the reality is we can, next July 1st, we'll have another infuse of money, and which is not that far away. And we can take up these other projects that we may not be able to fund right now. But what is your thoughts for the phase 2 of the Hoyok Boys Club?
It seems we have the money to do it in the budget.
Is there anything left out here that anyone has strong feelings must be funded this cycle? Because if not, I think we're golden.
I don't have it. Boys Club is number one for me, for in need at this stage of the ballgame.
I have other ones I'd like to see funded, but none above this.
Okay.
This to me is, of everything we're doing, the most important, most useful, most,
It's the Boys Club.
I just
Yes.
want to throw it out there that the only, positive to just funding the first phase is then you kind of see how it goes,
We have
and
faith in,
then,
we have faith in him.
I just
He's got
want to,
faith
can
in
I
you.
just finish my?
Hurry up, he's got to go.
you know,
No, I don't
I'm
need to
good,
be
Mike.
interrupted, Mike, really.
No, I know you don't, Amy, but I want to move the discussion on. You finished? Are you finished? Are you
No, I
finished?
wasn't finished.
All right,
I was talking.
okay, finish.
I don't,
All right,
what?
all right,
I don't
hold
want to
it.
be treated with disrespect.
Okay.
All right, I'll make a
Anybody
motion
else?
to recommend funding of phase 2 of the Hoyok Boys Club.
As a second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's paid, it's done.
I appreciate it, Mike.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you.
So in terms of what's left, in terms of what's been asked,
Yeah, what's left?
the Armory, there's Pine Street, there's the train station, Chestnut Street, Victory Theater, the Flats Building, Maple Street, and that's it. So that's what's left in terms of what we haven't discussed yet and what has not been funded, or what has not been recommended for funding.
And we have $350,000 safely to
I would say 320 to be safe.
320. Wow.
And that's.
Now hard work.
And the
Well-
reason why I say that is because for example, if we don't fund anything for housing,
Right.
we can't move the
Right, it stays in
reserves
that
over into
reserve, right,
historic.
right,
The
right.
reserve is, can you say
Right.
what the reserve is for
I
housing?
think it's 10%, right? So,
What's the number?
but we
It's
don't.
102,965.90 is the amount in each reserve.
So 10 times that should be the number. If that's 10%, we have $1 million of,
Yeah, as I said, roughly. a
assuming
million.
that, of course, it's 10%, what I don't know is that we only have 90% not, because 10% went to admin.
Exactly.
5% went to admin.
But out
So
of each
it's
funding
5%
cycle.
for admin.
Oh, 5%,
Yeah.
sorry.
But out of each funding cycle.
Yeah, but I think, of what's left, we have mostly historic. The Chestnut Street project is
Is the only.
the only housing project.
Where is Elaine?
Yoga.
So we have, I mean, at least we have $300,000
Yes.
if we want to recommend any other projects.
Just my own application, are we, by law, do we have to take every year, for example, 2019, 10% housing, 10% open space,
Yes.
10%?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we haven't done,
But if you don't spend it,
that's okay, go ahead.
it rolls over to next year. You don't have to, If nobody put in a housing project, you don't give up, but that 10% that didn't go to a housing
Has to
project
be.
this year gets
Gotcha.
added into their account. It's like a rolling account. So if you could go 3 or 4 years in a category, build up a big amount of money and spend it on a big project.
Okay.
Right, yep, exactly.
So if we don't pass a housing appropriation this evening, or this year, we're not, the state won't come down and say, wait a minute, you didn't spend 10%.
No, it rolls over
No,
the
it
next
rolls
year. We don't have to
into
spend any, we don't have to spend any money this year at all in any
Okay.
category.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, that's the beauty of that kind of flexibility, you know? And that you have 10% minimum in each of these categories, but then the lion's share of the money you get to use in any one category or split it evenly amongst the others. And so that's what I was asking about with the open space and the Boys Club with Phase 2, make sure we weren't exceeding their 10% plus the allocation of the other money, but we're not.
Okay,
So
if my math is correct, forgive me, I hope it is, we would have $308,000, $308,304.
308, that was split.
Left in which,
Left in, that we could appropriate towards historic. If we take out the 102,965 from the 10% reserves from
Oh, you already took
housing.
that out. Okay,
If
so
you
one,
take that out,
oh,
that
so
just
we,
tells you what we could spend on historic
okay,
that's all.
great. So there's 510 to be spent, but 102 of it is housing, and that's gonna just roll over. 400.
Yeah, 411 roughly, yeah.
So,
But if we don't fund the Chestnut Street project, then that would go back into the housing reserves for the
Right,
next cycle,
right.
and we could still use the 308,000 for the historic projects left.
Amy, who brought forward the Chestnut Street project?
Valley Opportunity Council.
Okay. I don't think they're ready to pull the trigger on it anyways.
Yeah, they want funding from us because they can leverage it with grants from other agencies.
Right.
And to me, at least, that's the real appeal of their application. You know, they're not ready to pull the trigger, they do need other funding, but having funding from us gives them an opportunity to go for other agencies.
And how much were they asking for? 50?
Sorry.
50 and 50. Oh, 100, and they were gonna split it up.
50,000 for the historic project at 348 Chestnut and 50,000 for the community housing preservation at 337 Chestnut.
So 50 out of housing.
And I actually took some notes on their response, just to, if people want to hear this.
Mhm.
Okay. So for the 348 Chestnut Street, that's the historic one, it's tuck pointing of existing exterior brick masonry. The total cost is $404,000. They're asking for $50,000. And with other funding sources that will allow them to do the masonry repair and the pointing prescribed by the U.S. Secretary of the Interior standards. And they mentioned something that I think is in here, though I don't know what page, Preservation Brief 2, repointing of mortar joints in historic masonry. So
Right, so that's Sargent and Chestnut.
that's 348 Chestnut.
It's Franklin and Chestnut.
Well,
Franklin.
it does have a Franklin entrance also.
Yeah, it's right across the parking lot from Sacred Heart, right in back of the Housing Authority. Balsetti Towers,
Yeah,
the big,
yeah, it's a 4-story.
yeah, it's a monster.
Yeah.
And right across the street, its sister building right across the street, which is that building.
Here's a
very
picture.
construction.
This is what
Yeah,
it looks
okay.
Yeah, it's a handsome building.
And
So that,
Some of my brains
Someone
need this.
took my copy at the last meeting and it's
I
not.
didn't.
No.
But again, I wonder if, Mike, you want to think about my thought about, which I said to Elaine, which she said that she thought was a good idea, an email about not actually taking a vote yet, but just getting a consensus so that, since there needs to be a little more time to get the legal opinion, which we're advised to get from the city solicitor on these private owners.
Good idea.
Yeah, well, I'm perfectly happy giving everybody more time to think about these. Because
Okay.
we've got our first
Whoa.
set of recommendations.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we just do a private one?
You did, but that's what you chose to do.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
And I
well,
feel good
I
about
think
it.
that
And it's
that-
like, I don't,
Well, I didn't think of that one as controversial as the other ones, because it's very clear how it is a public benefit,
Which one's that?
the Holyoke Boys and Girls Club.
Oh,
So that even wasn't really one that I was even thinking that we need as much a legal opinion for from the city solicitor. Because
So-
they very
What?
clearly demonstrated how it's a public benefit, you know.
So on the 50,000 for the historic preservation,
Yeah.
I think that's a no-brainer. All right, that's a beautiful,
It is a beautiful thing.
It's
beautiful building.
No
And
question.
as we all know, if you gotta stay up on this pointing and that, you know.
I mean, it seems like we have a lot of demand for historic and we don't have a lot of demand for housing. And if all of the things being equal, you know, it's like, can we give, we're gonna allocate 50 grand out of our funding, I would rather make it out of the less competitive
Actually-
category, and from their perspective, do they care?
I think they want both. because
But,
they
right,
want
but you're
separate
making a good
elements.
point, because Stuart Sagan, he said that it would be a lot more straightforward to go forward with the affordable housing one, the 337 Chestnut, because it's already deed restricted, and we wouldn't have to do all those historic requirements that are very onerous. So if you were gonna do one, it would be easier to go with that aspect. But he also did bring up, you know, as you might remember, they need to follow a later timeline because they can't submit for the rest of their funding to DHCD until February of 2020. But that's a typical thing that Stuart Saginaw says that happens all the time with these types of projects.
And that's the housing, not the historical.
I think it's for both of them.
Well, but does that even matter to us right now?
Explain.
Well, I mean, in some ways it does. I mean, all other things being equal, I would rather be recommending funding a project that's gonna be happening in the short term versus, I mean, they're almost into the next funding cycle.
Yeah, but if this funding cycle tells us anything, it's that if they need to have the commitment by February 2020, submitting for the next funding cycle
Right, it's
isn't
too
going to
late.
get them there.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, and this is a very
Do it now.
typical thing from what I've learned.
Yeah,
that,
it's not an unreasonable
I'm-
delay.
Yeah, it's a reasonable situation.
So what are we thinking? What's the,
So if we gave them the money next week, they wouldn't start the pointing until next spring anyways?
Yeah, that I don't know.
Yeah, they would start, construction would start, let's see, it said January 2021. Masonry repair and repointing would start June 2021, so that's for the 348 Chestnut. And then the windows and siding work on 337 Chestnut to prevent water infiltration would start July 2021 and be completed December 2021.
I don't see tying up funds
But the
today.
thing is, if we don't tie them
That's
up
the
today.
chicken and the egg.
I see the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we don't tie them up today, they can't use these to qualify for the amendment.
They'll never
Well,
be able
this
to
is-
get funding.
this is why I am more inclined to do the housing, because there's not other demand for that housing money. It's just gonna sit in our account until the
Yeah.
next cycle
No, I
anyway.
understand.
So I think
agree.
that one-
That one is easy because we don't have competition.
Right.
But the other one is this beautiful building, as Mike pointed out. And if they can't get the funding to do the pointing without the seed money from us,
There's like 5 beautiful buildings on this list. That's, I think, where it starts getting a little more complicated. And
But this, excuse me for interrupting, but this building has people, and it's got the public money to help people, the public good.
that's a good point.
These are empty buildings that, although they are beautiful, and they ought to be preserved, God willing, but there's no people involved.
Well,
This one involves people.
43 Canal does have people using it. They're
that's.
not living in it,
Well,
but they're using it.
Yes, okay,
So-
right, that one and this one, I know was had
But
people in it.
43 Canal is the Portuguese club, right?
Right.
And that was gonna be a bear to go. This one is easy because Valley Opportunity Council knows what it's doing, has clearly done this 1,000
Yeah.
times.
They were pretty impressive.
But I thought that the 43 Canal was just the plaster now.
Yeah, I think 43 Canal is just the plaster, we will have to adjust
But
it.
the issue with 43 Canal is also that they're kind of vague, and that was something else I was
Yeah.
going to share with you about what Shannon Walsh said when I shared with her that, which I can about the use of the architect, and I have the notes about that somewhere. Let me see. I have,
So we have two of them that have people involved with it. We have Chestnut Street, Chestnut and Franklin Street, excuse me, Maple, no, Chestnut and Franklin, and then the Portuguese Club. They involve people. Well, if you guys want, if there's a common denominator or a need that's greater for the city, would you think is that there's people involved as opposed to empty buildings?
Well,
As a way
the Portuguese Club is not a residence. This is,
Well, it involves people.
well,
The other ones are just vacant.
Well, the Portuguese Club is vacant right now too, right?
I thought they were using it.
Are
They're
they
using
Yeah,
it.
they're
as
using
a-
it.
It's sort of a community center for the flats.
They're using it now, is it?
That was my
Yes, yeah.
understanding.
That's what I just.
I know they were wanting to, I didn't know whether they were using it
yeah,
now.
and
Yeah.
it didn't sound like it was an urgent
So-
need. I mean, when they came in for us, they wanted the money for something completely different. And the rationale for the funding keeps changing.
So we do need
Do you want to
to,
hold off on, you want to hold, is it the will of the board to hold off on the Portuguese Club at this point in time?
hold off on what?
On the funding of the, at this point in time, do you want to entertain the idea of holding off on funding the Portuguese Club until they solidify their application a little bit more in terms of clarifying the demands of the historical commission or the historical needs of the Community Preservation Act, or not, and the big building on Chestnut and Franklin, to me, it's pretty clear cut, both of them, but it involves people.
I would be inclined to say, and this is just me, hold off on the Portuguese Club and discuss it perhaps subsequently, simply because I don't think we're ready to define what we need in an agreement or what precisely we would be funding. And we know
So-
Chestnut Street building.
Hold off for this funding cycle still, or hold off until the next funding cycle? I just want to,
Oh, I mean, hold off until possibly the next meeting.
oh, that we have. So it's still potential something that we
Yeah, because, as I say, I don't quite understand what it is that we can fund at this point, and I'm not sure that simply remastering is, something where it's competing with getting the funding done on a major kind of building.
Right.
I would hold off on plastic, personally. It's not as compelling a case. And I don't know what we're voting on, and therefore,
Well, it's discussion. Madam Chairman, we're talking about the two properties we're talking about is the Portuguese Club and the two properties on Chestnut and Franklin Street. The big building and the smaller one. One needs windows and there's water infiltration in the building. The other one is historic preservation work on the pointing and the character of the outside of the building from Valley Opportunity Council. So we're discussing, and you can take over when you're ready, we're discussing it and the amount of money they're asking for. Should we do it now or later, or just what is the will of the board?
Also, we
So
should
go ahead.
let you know that they voted in the second phase of the Holyoke Boys and Girls Club.
okay, great. And it's 7 o'clock.
They'll never start on time.
Okay.
Right, and
Because you're not there, that's why it's important.
I can probably spend another 10 or 15 minutes, because the first two things on the agenda were, the first thing on the agenda, I can already see is gonna eat up a lot of it. Somebody's got a public petition for cable access from HG&E or something.
Oh, yeah, I was
That should-
actually.
You don't want to be there anyway.
That should drag on for a while, so.
That would be great if they could
I
do
feel
that,
really
but-
strongly about actually getting that on the ballot.
I think everybody does, but I don't know.
Yeah, but
what's
HG&E
making-
doesn't have the money to do it, so
Well,
that
yeah.
would be great if they could. 10 years ago, they should have done it.
So, anyway,
Madam Chair, given that we have a number of projects under historic and it's a limited pie, would it make sense if we aired, are there certain projects that people know they won't fund?
Well,
So that we know which ones we're navigating between?
yeah, just to be clear, we could take the whole 65% Actually, 75, the 75% is left. And do the whole 75% historic if we want. All right?
Yes.
So to say that there's,
Yeah, we spent a lot of it.
right, but we could spend up to 75% on historic. That's
So-
just, you know, I know we're doing other things, but
So
Okay.
for example, if we don't pay, if we don't fund the sanctuary, because we haven't had that conversation, but I've heard it a number of times now that I'm not hearing consensus on it, then we are still over $264,000. In terms, even if we tried to fund every other project, we couldn't. So, but like the armory, the train station, Chestnut, the Flats building, people have talked about all four of those a number of different times.
well, I'll leave you with a couple of things to think about on the historic side. This, what Mimi said about the plastering, that's true. It's not going to affect, the mortar's not crumbling, the mortar's pretty well covered up and stuff there. So it's not being affected by the weather and stuff as much anymore. And that doesn't stop them from doing any of their interior work and keeping the building functional and stuff like that. They had all that beautiful work done inside and all this remodeling done, and the only thing left to do was dress up the outside. It'd be one thing, but so if this got put off for a year, it wouldn't hurt anything. I think
What are you
putting
talking about?
The Flats.
the Portuguese Club,
Portuguese art.
putting off the Chestnut Street 4-story Chestnut and Franklin one, that could hurt, and also it affects their ability to get the other funds. So I really like that one as a prior. Like I said, we can come back. We'll have more money next year. Encourage them to come back with it, or just leave it in. I guess you just leave it in, right?
I think we either have to accept or.
We can figure that out subsequently.
The sense I got from them, because I once asked them if they would be okay if they, say, got awarded $50,000 for just one of the two buildings and not both, and it seemed like they want the full amount because they need that in order to get the funding match with DHCD.
Now, are you
Yeah,
talking
I
about?
think we're talking about different projects.
Yeah, and what are you talking about?
I thought you were talking about the Valley Opportunity
No,
Council.
we was talking
Okay.
about, yes.
Sorry.
Okay.
Well, I kind of was talking
You
about.
you
were
were. It
talking
jumps
about
about-
both, but yeah.
Yeah, but that's
We're
why.
talking about putting off the Portuguese Club.
Right, but then you did start to talk about the other project, didn't you?
So
You're saying
can I
both
make a
we
suggestion?
need to fund
Let's
both.
pick one off, right?
Yes.
Just one.
Let's do that one.
Housing, under the affordable housing, the Chestnut Street property and the request for $50,000, that's under the affordable housing. There's no other project that's competing for housing money. There's still gonna be $52,000 left in that reserve that will roll over to next year.
What
So
are they going to use that 50 for?
that's for
Water
windows
infiltration for
and, yes.
windows and siding.
That's
So,
what-
but it's under the housing, it's not under historical preservation, it's the only applicant under that. So I would make a motion to recommend that we
But
fund
the
that.
point that I just made was that I don't know if they'll be able to do anything with it if they just get 50,000.
No, we all get.
One step at a time.
We all get
We're
that.
getting there.
We all get.
But right, I
I
appreciate it.
think that,
Okay.
But just make, because there's two,
Yeah.
the other category is gonna be under historic. So this is a funding out of the housing account
Yeah,
in the amount of $50,000
right.
for the Chestnut Street
Right,
property.
right.
I'm making that as a motion that we recommend funding
Is there a second?
that to the city
Second.
council.
To
Okay, under
to both the
discussion.
50 and-
Under discussion.
Let's
Wait
just
a
take
minute, under discussion, one at a time. Who, you finish what you were saying?
But-
You're done?
Yep.
Okay,
But what if-
Mike?
okay.
Yes, I vote whatever Kip said. Yeah, Chestnut and
But,
Okay.
the
We're
$50,000.
getting to that.
Wait a
We're
second.
getting- we're
no, I
getting
know,
to
I just want to, do you want to wait till we
Under
get the
discussion.
legal opinion though, like we talked about through email from the city solicitor on funding private projects before actually putting a vote through?
Well,
Well, we can vote on it, and then if there's a problem later, we'll
You can just take
Of
it
course.
back.
Of course.
Really? I didn't know that.
Or we can have
Or
it
we
killed,
can
we can have
make
it
an
The city
amendment.
council
we-
won't approve it because the
Excuse
city
me.
solicitor says don't do it.
Yeah,
Wait a minute.
they can kill
Excuse
the
me.
council.
What?
Excuse me, hello, I was talking. We can make an amendment to that vote.
Okay, I didn't realize
We
that.
can
Okay,
amend it.
I'm relieved.
We can amend it, and if necessary, but I don't think they are going to be able to do anything with the 50,000 because they are waiting for the other funding so they can do the whole project at once, which I don't have a problem with that because I know Valley Opportunity Council will do a good job and is very conscientious and oversees what they're doing in a conscientious way, so I'm okay with this, but you're right, they probably will not use the 50,000. But they will have to, we'll have to keep it aside for them because we're not gonna give them that 50,000 until they actually do the work and then we'll pay them when they give us the invoice.
Well,
We're not gonna give them the 50,000. We'll give them a letter saying they have 50,000,
Which allows them to get the matching.
which allows them to get them.
And if they don't get it, they don't get the 50 grand that rolls
Exactly.
back in.
Exactly.
And Amy, in regards to your concern about the legal, we get two other chances to pull it back. In the finance committee, if something comes up in the meantime, we can, it's called a motion to withdraw. And either it goes through finance and then they come up with something later, motion to withdraw. It's that simple.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, I
So,
think where we were going is, we wanted to do the other half of that project to get them the ability to raise the funds to do the border, so the building doesn't fall down. Am I correct?
Have we
That's the one that keeps
officially
referring
voted yet?
to.
No, I did the house, under housing, that's historical, so we gotta do that one next.
Yeah, but I thought we had voted on the housing. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't think
we
we
have
ever
to all in
did.
favor? You're all in favor?
Aye.
All in favor, raise your hands, I know everybody is all in favor, and so this the minute taker over there, okay. All right, so now what's next?
I would refer, discuss the historic aspects of that application.
Across the street, the building across the street.
Yeah, because I thought what we were doing was, we had appeared to me to reach consensus on we should do both halves of this. And because it's two constantly separate applications, two votes,
Right.
and therefore, I will make the motion that I think Mike was about to make to approve the historic funding for the repointing.
Second.
Chestnut Street.
And what is the,
Under
what's the,
discussion.
That's another 50.
that's a,
Yeah,
Valley Opportunity.
Under discussion?
that's the other 50, this is for the Valley Opportunity.
How much does that leave left? Would that be the last one, or is there
Comes out
one
of
No,
more?
the
it's
historic.
348 Chestnut Masonry.
Yeah.
Under historic,
Mhm.
348 Masonry under historic. And it's 50,000.
Yep.
Okay, so under discussion, we had a motion and a second on that? Did we have a second?
second, yeah.
Okay, so discussion?
I just wanted to know if that was the last of the projects before we shrunk our budget to where we couldn't fund anything else, or if there's one more after this.
So,
But that'll
remember
know
where you're at, where
remember
you're at to.
the historic total is 308,304.1. This would bring us to 258,304.
Remaining?
Yeah.
Yes, after
After paying
Walnut-
$50,000 for the
Walnut Street, Chestnut
348,000.
Street Masonry, I'm sorry.
So I can give you a quick
So did we
update.
vote?
No, are you finished discussing 348 Chestnut Masonry? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we can go on.
All right, so I'll give you a quick update in case after when the train station got more complicated since last night. I did some more looking into it. Whatever gas and electric did, we gotta go in there and look. All
We
right?
have to what?
We have to get in there and take a look. All right?
Okay.
I don't believe that it's as snug as they say it is. All right? It's gonna rain out this Friday. I'm gonna try and get in on Friday. All right? A section of that roof that was slate has been replaced with asphalt shingles. So there goes the historic aspect right out the window. All right? That was not, and the slate that was used, so if we're doing a truly historic, that was not even Munson slate, which a lot of these were, and I forget the name of it already. It's something else, and surprised me. It came out of Connecticut. It didn't even come out of months in May. And other patch jobs have been done over the years with different types of slate. So to get that back to its original historic, I think we'd have to agree that it gets a lot more complicated. We get into all the historic preservation. What does the historic commission want to see? Can it be just slate? Or does it have to be?
Well, I thought we were re-roofing the entire, like, wouldn't everything come off and then a completely new roof go back on? I thought that's what we were discussing. So it wouldn't matter, as long as it's not leaking now.
That would be the
Slate can't be
ideal.
repaired, just.
Yeah,
So some of the underlying decking for the roof.
Well, yeah, they take it down to structure probably, and then lay out a new subroof, plywood or whatever the
Yeah.
subroof is.
Well, the timbers that support the decking, the roof decking, may need a lot of work, and some of those are intricately carved and ornate. They're like the ones up in the auditorium in City Hall.
Wow.
yeah. Well, you know, my suggestion about those 3 developer incentive projects is that we can give them a letter saying that we will give them 150 each when they get a developer.
But the whole point is
That
that they
encumbers the
need that
funds.
as an incentive. They're not gonna get a developer for the
But they'll
two.
have our letter. They'll have our letter that says,
Oh,
Yes, that works, but it encumbers the funds. Then
but, right,
if
but,
it
but,
is
but,
spent.
but it covers the funds.
We don't have the money for
But-
all of them at this point.
My-
Also,
Yeah.
um,
Could I finish, please? Okay, thank you. But I would say that this year, we can probably give them the actual 150 for the armory, because it's my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that they have a developer for that, do they?
well, they
They
sort
do.
of do. I have a serious issue with that one, in that I think that because of the developer they've selected, and, you know, I don't mean to bash One Holyoke, they do great work in town, but they are all about housing. They are not about historic preservation. When they have dabbled in historic preservation, there have been problems, I understand.
Well, they're into it now with the Portuguese club, they're into historic
Well,
preservation.
well,
That doesn't, but
Whether
my point
that
is,
is or not.
you know, I would be very uncomfortable without an agreement with them that says, you know, we will preserve, or our project, whatever it is, will preserve this facade, you know, according to whatever standards the historical commission lays down, and with a clawback saying, if a project that does not preserve this facade is what you come up with after the study, or if at some point in the future, the work is not done up to these standards, you make us whole. We want that money back. Because there were issues with, you know, they stepped up with that house by the Yankee Peddler that had to be moved. And, you know, and I may be getting this story wrong, but what I have been told is they contracted to move it. There was a chimney that was an important historic feature. And come the day of moving, all of a sudden, the Historic Commission hears that, well, gosh, we made a mistake with the estimate, the mover can't deal with the chimney, you know, too bad, so sad, we're taking the chimney down. And the house was moved before the Historical Commission could even intervene to say, hey, wait, this is not part of the deal. And, you know, you hear stories about their replacing windows in historic buildings with modern windows. And all of this is just fine if your goal is housing, but if your goal is historic preservation, you know, I think that they, as a developer, would need a great deal more oversight, and we would need a great deal more protection before it made sense for us to say, okay, fine, we're going to give you $150,000 for pre-development work.
And just to add to what you were saying, inside, they're right inside the doorways, are 2 monstrous limestone plaques that list the names of the Hoyokers who died in the Spanish-American War, and the ones who, I think the ones who died and the ones who served also are all listed in there. We put through 2 years ago in order to get those plaques removed and stored in the War Memorial, and that still hasn't happened. They might be incapable of removing those. So,
Who's that?
anybody, they're limestone,
Oh, I see.
all right? And
Yeah.
the risk of,
They're gonna take
but
them
nobody,
down.
nobody wants to
They'll
clean
be
on it because of the risk of damaging that.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
and Mimi, you had said the facade, but my understanding is that there's a little building that was the front part of, and then there was a shed in the back. The shed collapsed.
Yeah.
Is that little,
It's
when you
just-
say preserve the facade, sometimes they take down everything on the inside and it's literally the
Just the
facade.
wall.
yeah,
Is
well,
that what we would accept that? Because what does that inside look like?
This
It's-
is all stuff that we would have to determine, because, you know, they're applying, as I understood it, under historic preservation.
So,
The back is collapsed. It is only, you know, whatever is still in front, and these limestone monuments, it's still historic. And
now I was want to preserve, depending on what it looks like,
Yeah.
more of the interior. Maybe that's
I'm not
where
sure if there's
public
any
spaces
interior.
are.
There's nothing.
There's nothing there. I've never been inside.
We'd have to
There's
have,
nothing
Mar-
there.
we'd have to
So-
have Marcos Marrero come in and talk to us more about it.
You know, I
He
can,
wants
I can
that-
tell you, Marcos and I walked through the place,
Yeah,
all right?
yeah.
It's about 80% intact, the interior,
Mhm.
right? However, one section, as you go through the door on the right-hand side, is badly rotted out, and two city workers, the stair collapsed right after they went down, and luckily they had their cell phones, and they had no way to get out.
That was in their application.
They had- yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Ricky Cruz was one, so.
Well, we should have him come in and speak to us and how, he knows historic preservation. He knows what, that he has planned with this developer that's supposed to, he's gonna work with them. He's the one that's gonna do the work.
So-
So before we make a decision on that, we should have him come
Have
in.
who, Marcos?
Marcos come in and talk to us more about that. But the other two that I'm suggesting, I'm not saying put that money aside for them, no. This year, out of our money, no. We'll say to them, look, come back to us when you're a developer, and yes, we will consider giving you that 150 at that time. I don't want to put that, I want that 300,000.
And we can put it in the record, it has strong support from the committee.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Marcos did say that doing that would be significantly helpful to his attempts to attract a developer.
Right.
So I just don't quite understand, do you mean saying that we may consider, the committee may consider giving this money if a developer is found?
When the time comes, yes. When
Because
the time
The
comes.
the thing is, it seems like the whole point is that they can't attract a developer unless they say, here, we have this incentive for you,
Well,
as
they-
a definite.
They can say that they are strongly sure, I don't know what the right word is, we'll have to figure out the legal words, but,
We have it on the
when the
record.
ti- yeah,
What, maybe?
No, Marcos has been before us at least once, and in private conversations has also said that he thinks that simply knowing and having it on the record from us that
yeah, that
we
we're
believe
strongly,
these
Mhm.
would qualify for CPA funds, and we would be, very interested in working with the developer and seeing if we can provide these incentives if a developer comes forward,
Mhm.
is helpful to him in marketing these properties.
and he can say that when he's
And,
marketing it, that,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, because one of his big goals was to make it clear that these were eligible projects, or would be, potentially, for a developer. And, I think, you were in the meeting with me, right, Mike, where we had that preliminary meeting with Marcos and
Yeah.
Dijak?
Here, right next
Yeah.
door.
And his big point was, yes, it would be great if
Promissory
you have the
note.
money, but if you don't have the money and you can't give it to us this year, it still is very helpful to say, yes, these
Exactly.
qualify, and yes, it will help with marketing.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I think that seems like something we all agree we can do.
So, let me just make an observation. I count 6 applicants that have not been voted to be recommended for funding yet. Okay, there's the 3 from Marcos, the developer incentives.
yeah.
There's the Maple Street project, MIFA, and the Flats. And if you add up,
The
you know,
Flats is Canal Street?
450, I'm sorry?
The Flats is Canal Street.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Portuguese.
Yeah. So that's 55. MIFA is asking for 300 or any part of that, 100 over 3 years. Maple Street was 17,000 and Marcos was 150 times 3. So that's $820,000 worth of applications that have not been funded, recommended for funding. And we have, I'm counting $258,000 that we haven't allocated anywhere. Just to give people a picture of what we're wrestling with. We have
All right.
$258,000 that we could apply to none of these, one of them, two of them, you know.
Okay.
So,
All right, so it's 800 and something thousand, so if we only do one of the developer incentives, that's 150,000, so that's 300,000 we're not gonna use of that
correct,
800.
well, 200,
Of that-
100.
Not gonna use this year.
258,000.
It's
No.
108.
It's three,
We have
it's,
258,
you said you had 800
No,
something.
you didn't say.
800 people are asking for 820.
Yes, so let's start there,
Yeah.
okay. We're not gonna do two of the developer incentives, or we haven't voted, but
Oh, I
if
see
we
what you
don't.
mean. That's 300
So we're
comes
taking
off.
300, so, okay.
That's down
So
to
that leaves
520.
the 5,
Right.
okay, and then on the MIFA, they want 100,000 a year, so we're just gonna give them 100,000, not 300,000 this year. I mean, that's my opinion, this is my
Or less.
opinion.
Well,
So that's 200,000 off, okay, so we're left with 300,000,
300, yeah,
and
320.
we're close to the
Or
258.
Right. We're
So-
$70,000 apart if we did those two things, if we did MIFA at 100 and a developer incentive at 150, we have $8,000 left.
yes, well, I think
This,
this is worth further discussion, and I would personally propose that we try to cut back on that 100,000 for MIFA, because, you know, as others have pointed out, the amounts we can give them are not make or break, and it would probably be easier to pick out something like the murals at 40,000
Yeah.
and offer them that.
or
Well, they're
what
not.
was Wisconsin?
That's not what they're asking
Well,
for, they're asking for 100,000 this year for
Yeah, but we
specific
can,
things.
what we're gonna give us.
Wisconsin's.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, this is what they're asking for, they don't want the murals yet.
They were at the Holyoke Historical Commission Monday when I was there, and they were presenting an issue where they had to purchase and demolish an adjacent building.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, like they've got more obstacles than you had fingers, to
They
count.
also have the
Elaine?
money.
Yes.
So I feel
Yes.
bad sending any money that way because I don't know that we're gonna get any return on it.
Okay.
Does my leaving, do we still have a
1,
quorum?
2, 3, 4, 5, no, we're still good.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're being missed up.
Thank you, thank
Well,
you.
thank you, that's very rare that I hear that. So, yeah, if I could share a couple of quick thoughts on the way out the door. Number one, so tomorrow when I send in the orders, I'll need a revised total on the boys club. I don't have
Yeah.
something that's dollars and cents. Plus I'll add to it the 50 and 50 for VOC, right? For Valley Opportunity Council. So these are-
Is Amy ready
The
with
total
that?
for the boys club is on here. It's $359,689. It was on this sheet.
That's-
You have this sheet, yeah.
I don't have that.
Yeah.
So,
You're not taking mine.
359,
Scarce commodity
That's
around
the-
here.
689. Okay,
I'm
so I got
lost.
that.
I wouldn't know what we're talking
I
about.
got the two for Valley Opportunity Council, all right?
Yeah,
And
those were 50 each, right?
if any others do get put forward tonight, just send me an email and I'll add them to the list,
Okay.
all right?
Okay, so we will no longer have any more money in open space.
Yeah, that's gone. Well,
And we're using part of our reserve to fund all the rest of
And
it.
just
Okay.
for your thinking for, I can't predict the future, but everything I've seen going forward so far, I see is getting pretty broad council support. I think the Boys Club will get broad support. I know the stained glass windows are gonna get broad support. The Smith's Ferry, the lanterns, the Valley Opportunity. I think Gloutak Woods is in for a rough ride. all right?
Shoot the prerogative.
I'm just telling you, I think that's, so, thinking, all this money gone, 178 could come right back into the kitty quick, you
Mike,
know?
how many people are on the finance committee?
5.
And so how does it, is a quorum, it will?
Quorum's 3.
Okay,
For
so
majority.
but will the whole city council have to vote on each of the things? And
Yes,
then-
we,
Okay.
we
you'll
just send it
recommend-
with a
Okay,
recommendation
fine.
to deny or approve
Mhm.
with the reasons, and then McGivern will give a 10-minute speech on all the
So if
reasons
you
why.
deny something, can the city council still vote to approve it?
Oh, yes, and that happens.
Okay.
Yep, not that often, but it does happen.
If the subcommittee makes a recommendation to the full council takes under advisement and votes.
Yep, yeah. But the big obstacle for Gloutak isn't it's the fact that we have so much, 6,000 acres of open space, and to spend precious tax dollars acquiring more open space, that's going to be the obstacle.
Okay, well, I hope they also keep in mind the 87,000 that will come back in taxes that were owed.
That's correct.
And also the logging that
Yeah.
will bring money
That
to.
should be in your memo.
Yes, well, we will
Yeah.
write up the recommendation when time comes.
I can already tell you, a couple of accounts are going to go, we're being blackmailed, we got to use taxpayer money to get back taxpayer money.
Yes, well,
That's not going to happen.
Well,
And-
the thing is, it's better than getting 0, which is what they're gonna get.
And,
No,
you know,
because if they don't pay the taxes, the city will take, here's going to be the argument, the city will take it for free.
Yeah, and they're gonna get no tax. They're not gonna get any taxes. We, pay
But
it
it's
back.
Sure.
77.
And
But
then
it's
when
better than
some,
spending-
and then
but
when
it's better
some,
than- but it's better than spending 179.
That's a
but then
valid
someone,
point.
when someone wants to go and buy it, they're gonna have to pay that back taxes, and they're not gonna wanna buy it, because they get the back taxes. So,
Well, then it can
it's-
still-
You know what?
then it
It's a
can-
circular
it is an
issue.
argument for the city council. We
That's
had this
exactly
over
right.
300,000.
Right, we've now booted it to them. And
Yes. And don't forget the residents who live
Yeah,
around there
that's
are all
exactly
in favor of it, and that's
Well,
a
they
big
should
thing.
show up.
That's
Well,
a-
I think they might.
they
That's a
should
big
show
thing-
up.
That's a big thing for one counselor.
No, it's a big thing for all of you guys.
Well, they should show up.
That's right.
People, for all of these
Yes, for all of
projects, the
these.
advice should be, if you're supporting one of these things that this committee has put to the city council, you should be there making your opinion known to the full,
Yeah.
to the subcommittee or to the council.
But we have had this
And if you
argument,
don't-
and
Yeah.
we will write up the recommendation, and it will become a political issue.
Right,
It's an
Yeah.
election year. It is-
Yeah.
right. Right.
Okay.
All right.
We're an advisory board,
Well, we
right?
did-
I mean,
That's
we-
right, we are.
If we get any more tonight that we're sending forward, Amy, you guys email
So-
me to put it on the list, right?
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
let's bang through these 6, right? Let's get, I'm gonna throw a little bit out on a limb. The $17,000 for Maple Street, which is for a private property, I'm not so inclined to recommend funding of this private property. My opinion. We have to decide what we're gonna do.
If it comes down to money, if it comes down that we don't have the money for it, then I'm okay with that. But if we have the money for it, I'm okay with the project, that's my opinion.
Okay, I thought we were picking one off, that's all.
No,
I misread the room.
I have problems, philosophically, I have the problems with, Madam Chairman, it's not a lot of money, but the idea is, well, why can't I fix up my house, which is historical, because this guy can do it, why can't I do it? Then the other guy says, why can't I do it at my house? I got a 2-family, it's historic, it's beautiful, but he got 17, I want 35, and the other guy says, well, I want 45. Well, where does it end?
It does open up a whole other.
Well, and we have a project that could be ready, and it serves a social function. The community flats building. Like that's more money, but I think it has a better.
It's a common good, the greater good is served.
A public purpose.
A public
that's-
purpose.
Yeah.
Right.
Where,
If it's your house or my house.
technically, the Maple Street project does not serve a public purpose.
Well, I mean, there's an
except in the
argument to be
laws.
made, I'll play devil's advocate, there's an argument to be made that it does serve a public purpose, that
It's
you're
not different.
rehabbing a historic property. Ignore for a moment who owns it, whether the city owns it or a private entity or a nonprofit, but this is the only application that we have that is private for profit. Everything else private that we have in front of us are nonprofits. And
So we can put that on the back burner, just put that aside,
So we
that's last on the list. And if we don't have the money for it, then we're not gonna do it. I mean,
Okay.
that's.
I guess we didn't put it that way.
That's,
Yeah, Chairman, you want to make that?
So what we want to, how we want to bang through these 6 is to go and prioritize
Yeah,
which
why don't
ones
we
we
do
do
that?
want to fund.
Right, let's do that.
What do we got left, guys?
We have Armory, Pine Street, the Alpine, train station, Victory Theater, CDC's Flats Building, the Portuguese American Club, and Maple Street.
Okay, so out of all of those, which one is everyone's number one priority?
I'm not comfortable with any of them as written. Where I feel like every single one of them that we have left has some kind of significant complication.
Okay,
And
how about you, Marco?
I'm going to say that if the 43 Canal, the Portuguese Club gets maybe the application a little clarified, if it's just the plaster repair, I don't even think they need an architect for that. And I thought that was at the hang up with that project. Because the other parts, I thought it
yeah,
could be removed from
it
the
is, and it is.
application.
If they can't pay for an architect, then, you know, we can only pay for the part that's for our part of the work, but if they can't pay for a full architect, then they can't get an
Do
architect.
they need an architect to do just that? Is
Yeah,
that what
I don't
it's
think
been
so.
boiled
I
down
mean,
to?
it seems to me they could get a consultant just for, you know, that
If it's just the
particular
plaster, I
job.
thought they removed the signage and the lighting, and wasn't that removed?
Last I heard, they had removed that, but I think where there was still a hang-up was they wanted to hire an architect for what looked like interior design. It was not historic, it was just
Yeah, we, and
about.
we
It seemed like
can't,
they
we can't
thought-
pay for
So I
that.
It
wouldn't
seemed
fund
like
that,
they
but
thought that this architect could be funded by CPA, but also do other things.
Yeah.
So do we have a sense of the budget to do the stucco work?
Did he say he had an estimate? I guess I'm not ready
let's see
to
what
move
I have.
forward on that right away, but I think that
So-
that seems like a deserving project. If the application might, maybe we need to revisit it and clarify.
Amy can tell you.
That's pretty much, in a nutshell, my issue with all of them.
Oh, and also, I found what I was looking for before. This is from Shannon Walsh, what she said about this project. She said it's, you know, they have a lot of information about why they feel this project is important to the community, but it is somewhat unclear specifically what they want an architect and preservation consultant to do. It sounds like they may be looking to get funding for something like a conditions report feasibility study that is specific to their historic structure and would include details on, although I don't remember him really saying that, details on the significant character defining architectural features and how this building relates to the other related buildings in this National Register district. This is a very good place to start prior to embarking on a preservation restoration project. A preservation consultant or an architect familiar with working on projects governed by the standards could also recommend appropriate treatments for their project. Also, if the stucco is from the 40s, it could be considered historic, and removing the stucco to expose the original brick could damage the brick and could also be cost prohibitive. This would require the opinion of an architect or structural engineer. But anyway, back to the budget question. Let's see.
What are the,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Here's what their budget, originally, they said 15,000 for an architect per bid on proposed scope of work, 5,000 for a historic preservation consultant. I'm not sure why they would need both and that much. Exterior repair, 20,000, and they did have lighting included in this amount they're asking for. Well, maybe they changed this now.
So what-
Actually, let me look at, see if they.
The exterior repair is $20,000?
Possibly including stuff that we can.
They were asking for 55,000 originally, which included the lighting and signage, which is not at all historic. That's just, you know, something that they would like to do.
So do we, as a board, take a vote to ask Michael Moriarty to provide us with a cost estimate to
for the
Repair
exact.
the exterior
Mhm,
for consideration of funding.
yes, that sounds like a
Do
good
we need to
idea.
take a motion and a vote to do that, or
No, we could just ask
Okay.
him to come back and do that.
just have them give us a cost estimate for what seems to be qualifying work under the act?
And the other thing about this is, well, he has been raising funds or trying to for this building for years now. And clearly, as Mike Sullivan just said, it isn't falling apart. The building is intact. And this may be an ideal situation for, we're not going to say yes or no this year. Come back to us in the next funding cycle with a really comprehensive
Okay,
discussion of what you actually want to do, because maybe you want to
The
do.
43
So-
43 Canal Street, there, Hedic is raising money for that?
No, One Holyoke has been.
Oh, one Hoyle Castle, yes.
That's my
yes,
Larry's project.
Yes,
So-
yes, yes.
I mean,
And that's just another.
Well, I still think we should have him come in and ask, and explain to
I mean,
us.
I think we should say there's still a potential for him to be funded this cycle if he gets in with a qualifying,
Yeah, yeah,
request for funding, that this is what it's gonna cost to repair the stucco on that, it's gonna be $20,000, and
Yeah,
then we know that that's the number, and that's what he's looking for, and we look and see what we have left, and whether we think it's worthy.
yeah.
Marco, I have a question for you. I mean, if they're just doing the stucco, is that they would still need some kind of historic consultant? Is there a certain
believe
way of
so.
doing stucco?
I don't believe so. Furthermore, what I wanted to add to that is on Monday, in front of the Holyoke Historical Commission, he had said that he wants to do the plaster. They had okayed it. They basically had this, they're going to send a letter of recommendation. And he said, and then we'll pick, appropriate lighting, period appropriate lighting, and some signage that is compatible with the style of the building. But that would be separate, it sounded
Yeah.
like. So
I asked
I
him-
thought it was boiled down to just the plaster.
Yeah, I asked him directly, and it was like he was, kind of making that part vague, and it came out that the signage is really not historic at all, it's just a sign.
There are no photographs, there's nothing of what the building
And
signage used to
He
be.
seemed surprised that I was saying that, that I was pointing out that, well, we couldn't fund signage unless it was somehow, I didn't know that, he was sort of assuming that it would be okay as part of this funding, so it kind of worries me that how, vague this is from the way he's presenting it, that.
The last thing I'll say about that is that he had said, we'd like to do the plaster work before we do any signage or lighting, because that way we're not doing one work, like applying something to the building and then re-stuccoing the building. Because then you've done work and you gotta take it off and stucco and then put it back on. I thought it boiled down to the plaster, for which I put aside my differences in wanting to restore the building earlier, and I'd be for it, only because I feel like it serves a good purpose.
It
If we
seems
can
like-
clarify it,
Yeah.
then that would be
He
helpful.
should subtract 15,000 then, because if there's not gonna be lighting and signage, and even more than that, if there's really no need to get a whole architect for this.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not needed.
okay. All
That's-
right, so we'll put that on hold, on a back burner for now.
And somebody's gonna communicate to Michael that
Yes.
he should put together
He will come,
a
yeah.
budget
Mhm.
to do
Just
historical restoration.
Historical restoration of
Which
the stucco work.
generally we're of the opinion that repairing stucco qualifies for that.
And
So who's
what,
gonna tell him that?
either me or Amy, it's up to you.
probably me, but, I am working a lot this week, so I'm, nervous about the hours, because I know that, I didn't realize that Ryan has to do the minutes, so.
He has a February of minutes to do.
Like 2 different meetings he has to do, the 2 public hearings, and
We
or
have,
at least-
the two
I
public
think, and
hearings.
maybe one other one, so
Yes,
I'm a
one
little
other
bit
one,
worried, because
yes.
I am,
He owes us.
Do you want me to call Michael for that? Do you want me to call Michael and?
sure, you want to, I mean, there's a
I
lot of
don't
stuff
wanna
to
add
do,
any
but yeah, if you could take care of it, that would be great.
unnecessary.
He owes us minutes for 2/6, 2/13, and 2/15. So I will, and I'm gonna convey that to him. Okay, so, all right. So we'll have to put that on the back burner and just have him come to our next meeting. with that information.
Do you have his phone number? Because it's on the contact sheet that I.
Yeah, I've got this.
Okay.
You do or
In my
no?
house.
So Maple Street is definitely, Maple Street's on the back burner, and so is Canal Street for now. Okay. All right, so, the next one on the list here is, the NEPA. I'm inclined to give them 100,000 that they, this is my opinion now, I'm not. That, give them 100,000 for, what they requested it for, the sconces or whatever it is. And of course, if they don't start construction, then, you know, we're gonna get our 100,000 back. I mean, they had their, we're not gonna fix the sconces, and this is gonna be in their letter. You're not getting the money for the sconces until you start
Will it be in a
construction
contract?
and a contract.
Right, they can't get anything done until they have the whole puzzle put together,
Right.
including getting our money.
Right, and so we're not, I mean, we're not gonna promise them the 200,000, whatever else, we're not even gonna say that, we're just gonna talk about the 100,000 for this year. If they start the project and they're under construction, and they want, then we'll, and they get the sconces done, they'll come to us with the invoice, we'll pay the invoice. Then if they wanna do seats and whatever else, their
Do we,
murals and,
were the sconces were in 100 grand though, right?
They were more. It was
Were
about-
they were
it was like
more?
170.
Okay, so
But they're
then
asking for
I thought it was less for some reason. So, I mean, I'll make a motion to recommend funding of up to $100,000 for the, the sconces.
I just want to add one element of discussion
well,
to
what's
that.
the first, second? Is there
Oh,
a second?
Wait, I thought you were gonna discuss.
We're gonna have a second and then we
Wait, is there a
discuss.
second and then discussion?
Oh.
Second? I'll second it. Just under discussion?
Yeah, I'm a little contrary because I believe, if I'm not certain, but like for the seeds, they were gonna remove the seeds, do the work off-site, maybe store it, and then bring it back. What if they do something like that to the sconces where they're gonna,
No, it's gonna be in the contract that they can't do the sconces unless their construction
I
has
see.
started.
So we wouldn't give
No.
them the money, have all these restored sconces, and then not have a project to install them?
No,
That's
no,
right.
they can't spend a nickel until they got the whole thing pulled together.
Okay.
Yeah,
And part of this is, you know, they are struggling. It's a very high mountain they're trying to climb, right? It's a very difficult project. And part of their struggle has been, you know, a perception of lack of community support for it. You know, maybe it's based on people being exhausted by it. You know, we're talking about it, it's gone around for a long time. But I think that part of their ability to raise additional private capital comes from signs that the community is providing some financial support. Everybody knows this is a poorer town. You know, we don't have a lot of capital. We're just looking for people to put up $10 million. But I think these little things, if they're gonna get across the finish line, these things are important.
No, I agree with that, and that is why I would have said, you know, let's ask them to come in with something a little bit less pricey, because I don't think there is a difference in terms of practicality between our giving them, you know, a potential 40,000 and a potential 100,000. There is a difference to what we can do. And honestly, as best I can tell, 100% or 99.9% of their funding now is vaporware. They don't have any money. They have these tax
Credits.
They have
Right.
the 13,000 or 13 million from the state
Right.
that can only be paid out subject to Governor Baker's approval.
Right.
You know,
Right.
And the odds are, as little as I like this, because I would love for the project to go forward, odds are that however much we offer them, it will sit in our account unused until the term is up.
Until,
Until, you know,
well, we'll put a time limit.
well, yeah,
We're gonna put a
no,
time limit.
I realize this isn't forever,
Right.
but we're already, you know, we are running through our funds. We're not going to be able to fund everything that's before us that's any.
Well, you know, they claim that they're gonna start construction in
I
July.
realize
So
that.
if they do that, then we're gonna use, I would like to have the committee support them for 100,000 so that the community knows, okay, they got 100,000 from CPC, so that's a, you know, a good sign for them. And, you know, if they don't, if it doesn't happen, we'll get it, yeah.
And, you know, remind ourselves, this is our recommendation to the city council. I imagine that this will be a pretty heated debate on the city council floor.
Right.
They're ultimately the ones that will decide whether, we can only stop it, right? We can't fund it. All we can do is recommend that the council do it, and then the politics of the situation will come into play.
I agree with Mimi. I give them 40, I wouldn't give them 100. There's too many variables. It's too much money's involved, and it's all paper. It's all on paper, there's nothing in the bank. I don't want to give them 100,000.
Okay,
No
so
way.
And I also think that there,
we seconded for 100,000, so let's have a vote on that.
Right, you know,
Yeah, we are done discussing?
could I just say one thing?
Yes,
Yeah.
please, under
I
discussion.
just remember that Kathy did say that they just wanted some token of support in a way, like we're talking about with support from the public that they could get if CPA could give some funding. So I think they'd be open. I mean, I think it would still mean something to get a smaller amount than 100,000.
All right. So, any other discussion under the 100,000? Okay, all in favor for 100,000? Okay, so 3 people, so that carries. Okay, so we voted for 100,000 for MIFA.
What was the original motion and second? Do you remember?
To fund the MIFA for 100,000
Yeah.
for,
But who,
who made it?
Yeah, who was
I-
oh, it was,
And
yeah,
who was the
and I
second?
seconded.
Thank you.
Okay,
So now we're down,
Okay, do we have any?
so that's all we've spent so far now on that, for sure, is 100,000. And now we go to the
now we're down
Yeah.
to
train.
One.
$158,304. So
158 left.
we're going for one of the developer incentives or to do the CDC Platson.
To do what?
Or,
Or to
I
do
mean,
the 43 Canal.
or we could reduce the developer incentive by enough to be
Oh,
able
that's
to do
true.
the flats building if we want, keep that. Or, and I'm sure One Hoyok would be happy to get 90% of their stucco paid for too, you know, they're not, it's, as in, you know, as any of these applicants are, right? I don't think any of them are 100% or never mind, we can't do the project.
Well, I imagine that the 55 would go down.
It
if-
will, we already talked
Yeah,
about.
so if it's 25, I couldn't imagine spending more than 25 on stucco. It's not a lot of surface
Yeah.
area.
So say we do 25,000 for, you know, if we do it, subtract 25,000 from where we are.
Reserve that, and not a vote, but reserve it for our
Well, yeah,
discussions.
Pending further review of what it
And
comes up with.
then talk about a developer incentive in the amount of 125.
Okay, yeah, so if we did 25,000 for the flats building, that would be 133,000 for developer incentive. If we wanted to completely max out the historic line and not have any rollover to the next funding cycle.
But what about, we have money in reserve still, don't we?
No,
No.
but this
so
is this.
The reserve is only that says we need to spend 10% of the total
Right.
in that category. That's what the reserve means.
Well, yes, okay, but then we have a pot of money that doesn't go to any category.
Yeah, is the amount
Yes,
you're
we do.
saying, does
That's
that
all been
include
divided
the
up.
reserve?
Does
We've
that
already
include
eaten
that? That's what I'm
Yes.
asking.
We
Yeah,
have,
and
like,
it includes the total that we can spend for historic.
The
Yeah, but we
The
can
only-
add an
the
unreserved
only
fund
money
or
left in
something.
reserve,
Yeah,
other than this, what do we have,
There's
$133,000?
$735,000 and $147
We have $1 million
of
to give
non-reserved
away,
budget
so-
that can be applied
We're
anywhere.
banging through it,
yeah,
Mayor.
okay, that's what I
But the
wanted to
only
know.
place we'll have money in reserve,
Yeah.
if we were to say, make a developer incentive of $133,000 and wipe that all out, would be the money that's left in the affordable housing account. That was the 10% that we only
But
spent
that
some.
has to stay.
Yeah,
there.
we
You
That
can't
we,
touch
no,
that.
right, that's what would be, that would be left in that.
Exactly.
So we spend the whole reserve pot that is not a for any
And
category.
all of it,
The only thing left would be what's left in reserves from housing.
yes.
Yes.
All right.
All right, so
That's what I wanna
you
know.
included the unreserved amount? Okay. Just wanted to
So,
check.
the only, so what we have left, right, where we get down to this, we have, unless I'm missing something, we have Maple Street, we have,
Maple
Pine
Street.
Street? What about the one that had the drive-it, the IFAS that they called it? There was the historic building plus the other, it was the.
You already voted that in?
Was that one of them?
That was,
That's
Did that say the
Oh,
Pines?
yeah, that was
Valley
Boston.
Opportunity
That was
Council.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Opportunity Council, we
So-
already approved it.
so we did. So there's the 3 developer incentives from the redevelopment authority that we haven't
Right.
allocated any money to. There's the flats,
Mm-hmm.
Portuguese, we haven't allocated any money to that.
And
And the
Maples.
Maple Street,
Mhm.
and we haven't allocated any money to that.
Right.
Those are the 5 things that are out there, could be potentially funded with $133,000 in some portion of that money.
So
Obviously,
I'd be okay with doing one, one of the developer incentives for whatever amounts you guys wanna.
Can I recommend that since we're getting so close to the wire, in terms of the funding, that we stop where we are? I would like Andrew to make sure that
Oh, yeah,
the
we
math is
have to.
correct. Now that
We're
we're getting
definitely-
so,
Yeah, we definitely
Okay.
have to do that, yeah.
because
So that means
think
another
everything
meeting
is
to-
correct, but I still want the treasurer
Oh, yeah, absolutely,
with his
yeah.
eyes
I
on it.
mean,
Yeah.
Don't,
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to that idea. I mean, that's why I was trying to do this, and
I don't
I'm
wanna go
no
and then
treasurer.
somehow we're off 5,000 or there's some rule I didn't understand. or-
And I think it gives us all an opportunity to think some more about these. The developers incentive is for discussion. Those are, I mean, those are hard, right? I mean, it's like, and it's the
If they
same
don't have a
thing.
developer for those, I don't think it's hard in the respect that if they don't have a developer yet for the Pine Street and train station, then,
So,
why give them money for it now? I mean,
yeah, we're gonna lock it up and not do something else with it. And that's why I think it's helpful to go through this the way we have with what are the competing things out there for the money? Like, is there some great project that we are not funding because we may want to put money towards a developer incentive? I'd be less inclined to do it, but I don't see the real competing. There's probably enough to give them a little developer incentive to do something for the flats, and maybe even if we want to do something for Maple Street. And say, you could do less amounts of each of these 3 things, and then people are getting,
The other thing that I think is worth bearing in mind is, we have spent a great deal of the money that's accumulated.
We
I
have
can't
what?
hear you.
Yeah.
We've already spent a great deal of, what's in the budget. The city council approves all of this. We don't know what will be coming forward in the next cycle. It is possible that something wonderful will come through, and we will wish that we had the extra.
That's true.
Yeah, but we can't worry
well,
about
we can
that.
also.
Yes, we can.
Well, we
but-
can't,
But don't forget, we can
if
also
we didn't-
bond for something like that if there's something
Yeah.
really special, you
And if
know?
we
I mean,
didn't-
there's,
yeah.
I don't want to bond either, but if it was something that was so
Yeah.
great that we
If
missed,
we didn't have these
But this is-
projects, then yeah, we can worry about it. And we could say, well, that's okay, we'll have it next time, but
Well, yeah, but if these
This-
are projects that we are iffy about to start out,
So-
that we appear to be.
right. And I think the flip side of your argument, right, is that, like, the community voted to tax themselves this surplus so that we would invest this money in things in the community and, probably sooner rather than later, invest the money in the
Well,
community.
yeah.
It's a tough call. This is a tough process.
Yeah, but these, well, arguably, at least some of these are not investments, they are speculation. We're trying to have money for something that might or might not ever happen,
Right. That's,
which is why these are down at the bottom of the list and they're the tough calls.
that's right. These are tough. This is,
Yeah.
And I also think
I-
that this is the first funding cycle, so it might be better to be a little cautious you know, because everything is new, and developing the contract's gonna be complicated, and if there are projects that are iffy, doing a contract with them will also be challenging, so.
Yeah. And I think
Plus,
there's
there's a lack of
also
admin funds.
we just spent 2 years of funding.
Right.
It was really easy. In one cycle, we spent 2 years of funding. And, you know, for that reason also, I think borrowing over some money wouldn't hurt.
It's, my guess is there'll be a lot more demand for funding in the next cycle. Like that people tune into, oh, these
Oh,
monies
yeah.
are available.
Another community said they had 28,
Yeah, I
so
won't be
some
surprised if
people
we
have
start
more
seeing
than one
things like
funding
that.
cycle
But I
because
don't,
they can't keep up with so many at once.
so when are we meeting again?
Okay, well, Wednesday,
We need to
we're not
figure that
done.
out.
Yeah, we're not done yet.
Oh, we're not?
I mean, I don't know, are we, Amy?
Um,
I mean, we didn't,
I don't have-
we don't have to have anything else definite that we have to do tonight as far as
I think
voting or
that's-
putting
I think
stuff
that
forward.
we are kind of,
You have enough work to do without getting all that stuff together for Mike, for the
Yeah.
city council.
I wish I had a highlighter though to go over the ones that we voted, but,
It's all in the minutes,
I don't think you
okay,
need to
can you
worry
send
about
me them tomorrow, do you think?
so as soon as I have internet.
Okay, thank you.
I just don't have internet here.
Okay, great.
Send them to me too, so I can
What did you say?
get them out.
No, I think this got obscured a little bit in the discussion about orders, but, you know, we had decided earlier to try to send these orders through to the city council in waves, with the easy ones first. And I think if we just send Mike for Friday, these stained glass windows, which we know have to go in for Tuesday, and the things that we have already agreed on, plus, you know, phase 2 of the Boys and Girls Club, that's all he needs
For now.
He said that all he needs is the details on the stained glass on Tuesday,
He,
and
yeah,
then
he
the
needs,
other things will be later.
the other things will be later. He may not need any further information from us to file the orders for Friday. He will need to file those orders for Friday. And do you have an email for him?
For
His
Mike?
email?
Mike Sullivan?
Mike Sullivan.
Yeah,
we
yeah.
have
It's
it.
on our
Yeah.
chain.
It's on, you have it, because every time she sends to the group, or Ryan
Yeah.
sends to the group.
So-
it's
I have it.
Okay.
So don't you think we, I mean, just simply for Mike's purpose and let him do with what he wants, which ones we voted to recommend from our first vote to today? And now I understand the detailed backup of one of those is, it needs to be expedited so that he has it on Tuesday, and the other ones can come behind. But let him file all the orders for each one of them.
If Amy has the wording ready.
No, well, you weren't here for this part of the meeting.
Oh, okay.
What Mike was saying is basically he can go on
Just give him a list.
what we voted for while he was in the room, and I'm
Oh.
gonna email him the other ones, and
Yes.
he can sort of get that in motion. And the first thing he really needs details for is the stained glass windows by Tuesday, and then he's not sure how soon he'll need the others. Of course, I'll be working on them, but he'll have to let me know what the date is for the others.
What about the
The
Gloutak?
finance
I
stuff.
thought that was an emergency, the Gloutak property.
You know what, I
Oh,
think
yeah.
Mike has said, I'm not speaking for him, but what I heard him say was, there's no way that is gonna go, not get referred to the
The
finance committee.
finance,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So
it's
all of the others are gonna go to the finance subcommittee.
Right.
Mike is hoping
Oh,
that he
to
can
take
get
up, okay.
Tuesday the vote on the stained glass windows.
Okay,
Oh, I
I'll
see
Full
what you're
committee.
saying now.
And that's why he needs as much detail for Tuesday.
Maybe I'll try to do the detail for Gloutak also on Tuesday, since like you said, that's time sensitive, so. I'll just-
Yeah, but you're wasting your time
Yeah,
because
no,
there's
that's
no way
gonna
it's
go to
gonna
finance.
go to the subcommittee.
Yeah,
The finance subcommittee is April 16th, so you'll need
But
to,
Yeah, but
they-
they can
they
call
might-
a meeting
they
earlier.
might.
They
be
can.
earlier.
they could.
You're saying that you think they'll purposely avoid having a meeting on it?
Oh, no.
No, that's extraordinary for an order to not be referred to subcommittee and then come out of subcommittee with a recommendation to the full city council. What Mike is doing for the stained glass windows is he believes that there's such strong support
Yeah.
for that it won't have to be referred to subcommittee for a recommendation,
Oh,
that the
okay.
full council can
Okay.
vote on.
Yeah, so that for.
They'll take it up
the
on Tuesday
22nd.
night.
And then we have to
When-
have
yeah,
a
when-
letter, we have to have a letter to them in time for the 22nd of March.
That's,
After the city,
And
if the city council votes yes, then we
Right.
have to have a letter to,
Right.
that they can present to the Mass Historic
Right.
that they got the,
Right.
Wait, I'm confused. What letter are you talking
a
about?
letter from us. If the city council passes the stained glass
Yeah.
windows, then the what's his name, the DPW, Mike McManus is gonna need a letter from us
Yeah.
saying they got the grant so that they can present that right away in time for the 22nd.
You know, it might be good for other people to start stepping up to do some of these tasks, since I might
Mhm.
suddenly have to drop out because of the diminishing hours.
Okay,
So,
well, this is only one thing that you'll have to do next week. This is just
no,
this
there's a
letter.
lot of things I have to do.
Well, this letter, well,
Well, the letter isn't until later, until after it's been approved.
yes.
right, this is what I'm saying. After Tuesday night, Wednesday, they need a letter. And it's just gonna be basic.
But that's anybody can write that, I mean, it's
Yeah.
not a.
Well, I have the stationery, you know, obviously.
It's just a basic letter saying that we are awarding
So
them.
you want it to be a snail mail letter as opposed to an email? It needs to be a mail
They have to
letter?
be a.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
or I think, unless, check with Mike, maybe you can do it on just
With Mike who?
McManus. He's the one that's in charge of
Why-
the stained glass
No, I
windows
know, but
and
there's
the
a lot of
grants.
Mikes, but I don't think we
Mike
would ask
McManus.
Mike whether we should write him a letter. That would be a decision.
No, I'm not saying
What he
ask
needs.
him, what does he need? This kind of letter, hard copy, or if an email's okay?
Oh, for
That's-
his application.
For him to present to the Mass Historic
Okay.
for the grant.
Okay,
Okay?
okay.
All right, any questions, and I will help you with that. If you need help with that, please ask me. I will.
Should be a one paragraph letter, right?
Yeah,
To whom it may
It's,
concern.
it's fine, it's just there's a lot of different things, a lot of
Yeah.
things to juggle, and
Right.
Crystal, the solicitor, and, you know,
well, if
getting.
you need help with that, and you could, then I'll help you with it, and you can cross that off your list of stuff to do, so. Just let me know. Okay, so where's the agenda here for tonight? I have no idea
Other business.
where I put, is
Here,
there
here's one.
anything else that
Mayor.
we're? Okay, the only thing I want to say about we're gonna pick in our next meeting.
We
then.
didn't talk about this at all, just so you know, you asked me.
Well, yeah, it's just for information. Everybody got a copy of that, the Acton?
Yes.
Okay.
Just read that for, because that's about the church thing. So that's not gonna be funded until next funding cycle
Right.
after July 1st anyways, no matter how quickly they,
Right. Right.
there's just no way we're gonna be able to do it, so. Just for information's sake, and that anti-aid amendment, make sure you read that, because I read it once, but I gotta read it again, because it's very involved, and it's got to do with the Acton thing too, so, in fact, it mentions the Acton. So anyways, let's pick a next meeting, and, I want to tell you who I want to come to this meeting.
I thought Libby was gonna come with a new person.
I know, she said that, she was, yeah. I want Mike Moriarty, Marcos Marrero, and I guess I'll tell Ryan, or you're gonna tell Mike.
I'm gonna call Mike, yeah,
Okay,
tell him
so
what
that'll
we're
take
looking
care of
for.
that. Marcos Marrero, Crystal Barnes, I want her to come to our next meeting. And there's another person, where's that page that I was writing on? Right here. And, oh yes, and as far as Crystal Barnes, now she has to help us write up the contracts. We have no clue how to do that whole thing, but Office of Community Development must have written contracts.
Yes.
So they must have a clue. So someone from their office could be here
Well, I
with.
don't think other CPA communities have written these agreements, there's probably a great
Exactly.
template
Well, we
there.
have examples on the CPA Coalition website, there are
Right.
examples.
Great place for Crystal to start, pull those down.
Right, exactly.
But it's true that OCD does have like templates that are, and, you know, Alicia actually has a law degree.
Which would help,
you know.
which would help.
But I don't
Crystal.
know if we can get her to come to a meeting.
Well, her or someone from her office, if she would be willing to come, or someone from her office,
I
that would be.
have a hard time getting a hold of them, frankly, but we can try.
Yeah, we can try, that's all we can do is try. And what is something you just said, contracts, what? get off the,
Get the templates off of the CPA and
I can't think what, I thought of something while you were talking and I lost it now. Okay, so that's where I'm at this
So
point.
do you want me to ask Marcos, Crystal Barnes, and someone from OCD to come to the next meeting?
If they,
Okay.
yes, that would be great. And now we need to pick a date. What's gonna be the next meeting? Now, where are we at in our deliberations here? I mean, what did we have for a schedule as far as when are we giving the, when do we have to finalize these last few projects to give to the city council? The beginning of April, right?
Yeah,
The
I
first meeting
mean,
in
their
April.
first meeting, you told me they have another meeting.
They have a meeting
that
the first
in
Tuesday in
so-
April, so is that has to be it, right? Because that was our schedule to get them.
But then I need time to write it all up, so I think it would be good if we met next week and the week after.
If,
Well, go ahead.
I wonder if someone could talk to Joe McGivern. I think that's important, just to know.
Oh,
when-
yeah, I'm gonna talk to him about that. To
Because
see if he can do it, but that has nothing to do with their full city council. They meet the first and third
Right,
Tuesday of every month, so that has nothing to do with that, but
but if-
finance can meet anytime.
right now on the books, finance's next meeting on the 16th of April.
But they
Right.
can meet at another time.
We
too.
need to ask
But it all
him.
depends on Joe McGivern, but I think that is a good idea if you contact him.
I'm gonna ask
Yeah.
him, I'm gonna contact him. Yeah.
So then I guess would be that they wouldn't be able to tackle it until April 15th. Or sorry,
Well,
April
but if-
16th.
Right, the second wave that we're gonna send in, yes, they'll take up to 16th, but we want them to take the others that we sent them now sooner, right?
We also have to
do.
make sure that city
think-
council gets this in advance to put it on the agenda. Is that their last, so, okay, because we want to have this done in,
Friday at noon gets it in before, for their agenda.
what, Friday
That's
at
what
noon on
Mike's
which
doing.
day?
That is
That's what Mike's doing already.
Mike is getting it on.
Sorry, Mike,
Mike Sullivan.
Mike Sullivan, okay. So which day do you want to meet next week then?
Well, I don't like Wednesdays because I can't come till
Yeah, I think
6:45,
it would
but,
be better if we didn't do it on Wednesdays.
I mean, you know,
Is Tuesday possible for you, maybe?
the
I'm
19th.
going to have to, in some ways, bow out of this whole thing, because at some point in the latter half of this month, I have to take a week in New York, and I keep moving around to try to make these meetings, and I'm just not sure when I am going to be able to finally nail that down. So I think you should, I will try to be here, but I can't promise any date in particular that I will be available.
But do you have a planning board meeting the 19th or the 26th?
I believe I've got one on the 26th.
Okay.
I don't think we've got one on for the 19th, but I wouldn't swear to that right now.
Okay, so can we go for the 19th?
Or is Thursday better? I don't know.
Thursdays are a little difficult for me, only because I have meetings in Ludlow that would go 5 to 6:30 to 7.
Yeah.
On Tuesdays, if we could go back to meeting at 6:45 instead of 6, I could do Tuesdays.
Tuesdays are fine.
We also talked once about meeting during the day. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, no one will work.
No, okay.
And certainly, if you put it on for
I can
Tuesday,
do
I'll
6,
try to-
6:45 or whatever on the 19th. I can do the 18th, but you can't do the 18th.
So why at 6:45? Someone can't?
She's
Oh.
asking.
I have music class with my kids from 5 to 6.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't mean that. The thing is, we'll have to do it here because there's the city council meeting will be using city council chambers.
So that means Mike won't be here. Mike
Right,
Sullivan.
Mike Sullivan won't be here.
Oh, that's true, and
Or
Ryan
Ryan.
can't be here either. Plus, we have to hope that this room is available.
So if Thursdays are an issue, I could probably get by, is it this coming? No.
It'll be the
like,
22nd.
21st.
21st, yeah.
If I'm the only one, I could probably swing
Yeah,
that.
you're right, the 21st.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't want to be the reason why we can't meet, so I don't have an obligation right now. I just know that I've been having regular Thursdays, but I could get out of that one if Seems
So
like
should we
it's
say
critical.
6 o'clock?
How about 6 o'clock Thursday, the 22nd? Does that work for everybody?
The 21st.
I mean the 21st, I'm sorry. 21st, okay. All right, 6 o'clock, CPA, 21st.
Okay.
And we're gonna have to pretty much decide on the rest of it.
Are we gonna make the
Or-
meeting for the next week, or we're not, we're just
We'll
gonna?
we'll see.
Thank you.
We could, I mean, we
It
can,
seems
we
like
could wait till that day
It
to
might
make
be
the next one,
important to
right?
fix it, since we're.
When we get the time.
Well, we'll know better what we need to do after we're done that meeting. so.
Okay, I just hope people don't make other plans.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? You know?
Well, that's why I was suggesting we do
Well, we
it.
can do it, but I mean,
It's so hard, we have a hard time doing next week.
the
We're
week
2
after
weeks
is
from now.
hits for me. I'm busy Tuesday night, Thursday night. The week after, I'm busy Tuesday and Thursday night plus Wednesday, but I don't
So
care.
you're busy all that week?
No.
Make a motion to adjourn.